They always say that there's only two things in life that are for certain, and that is taxes and death. Well, I'm actually going to make you aware of a third one called the secret tax. And well, lo and behold, it's inflation. And I want to tell you in this video exactly how it's eating your dollars and how that you can actually take advantage of it in the future. This all came to me when I was actually having a conversation with my daughter, and she asked me, "How much is $1 million, Dad?" And well, I said, the general conversation is, it's not as much as it used to be. And she's like, "Oh, why? What happened to the $1 million?" Because to them, $1 million is a lot. And yes, that is a lot of money. But when you realize that the secret tax or inflation is eating at a lot of it, even 3 years ago, $1 million is only worth about $700,000 today. That's quite a difference in just a short time span. So I had to tell her that, hey, no, I don't hold on to millions of dollars in my checking account. I deploy it into assets that appreciate in value and take advantage of the inflationary times like we're in right now, and will keep crawling up in value. And well, that blew her mind. She's like, "Well, what do you mean? So do we have millions of dollars or no?" And it's like, I tell her, well, we do, but we have them all buried in assets. I only really use the stock market as a savings account. I think it's a better area to store money than just sitting at 5% and hoping that it appreciates in value through the 5% phase, because this is only a phase. This will go down in the future. I believe by the end of 2024, you'll likely only be getting 3.5% or 4% at the bank instead of 5%. And I don't think that is actually beating inflation. You're just maybe matching it. But I think it's even under matching it, because I think inflation is a lot more than they are saying to us right now. And I think even the Fed, there was some emails out about that. They're actually, they just choose to what they want to hear. These are through market data is how they get the CPI and the PPI reports. And through these reports, they will dictate how hot inflation is. Well, they can just pick specific areas that are not as hot as others to give us a report that we want to see. And then if they need to get things down, they'll start reporting that things are hotter than typical. And that's just because they're taking the reports that they want to see to really dictate the outcome. I don't know about you, but I really just feel like a puppet in all of this, and that, the market goes up and down with all of it. And I don't feel like it's a way that we're actually beating down inflation. I don't think there's actually a true reading. And about 10 years ago, they read it completely different on how they read it today. Usually in today's standard, you can almost double it. So if it's 3.4% today, it's probably truly close to 7% actual inflation. Well, who wins in times like that? And what I was explaining to my daughter is that that's why I don't store my money in cash, because cash is inflation is just a secret tax taxing those dollars. And I know, well, many baby boomers are probably looking at this and they're saying, okay, well, in the 2008 financial crisis, I just store all my money in a savings account and in a 401k to protect all my money. And now I'm going to tell my kids to do the same. Again, that's why they'll never be rich, and they'll never willing to take on any risks, because you probably had all your money in something or another, a fourplex or a small property, and lost it all. I don't want that to affect my kids' decisions. I'm just saying, how do we take advantage of it, right? And you don't take advantage of inflation by high interest rates at a savings account. I promise you that. Now, different people at different ages come with different risks. But what I was telling my kid is that I only use the stock market to store all my cash, and then I convert it, I sell it off, and I go and buy true assets, which is real estate, and try to hold them as long as I can, and have them cash flow to hopefully just give me a monthly recurring revenue. And so I was explaining this to her, and she's like, well, why wouldn't you just want all the cash, to go buy whatever you need to whenever you can? Because I did explain that when you buy properties, it's illiquid, meaning you don't have cash anymore. It's always cash outlay in real estate. And I just went on to say that, cash is trash in my eyes. And most millionaires that you see, true billionaires, millionaires, they go to put their money to work. and they go to put it to work in the areas that create the biggest benefit for them, right? They love real estate because of the tax advantages right out of the get-go. And then they love storing it because it's great for capital preservation, meaning you get to depreciate an appreciating asset, much different than buying a car, right? Unless it was like the last couple of years where, cars went up in value, but now they're back down bigger than ever. So, and then you also have, you got appreciation and cash flow and some other things, principal pay down where the tenants are actually paying down the debt. I said, I don't mind getting in debt, and I'm willing to take on hundreds of millions of dollars of debt in my life if it's good debt, if it's something my tenants are going to pay for, and if the property will cash flow. And so she's like, wow, so wait a minute, are you in more debt than cash you have? And the honest answer was yes. Not necessarily equity, I said, as I equity into each building, but I said I have more debt than cash for sure. And that's called leverage. And that is the biggest way that you will fight inflation, is utilizing some leverage. And if they got to go buy something or whatever they got to do, they'll actually borrow 50% leverage on the thing. If they got to go, instead of using $50 billion in cash, even though they have $100 billion, they will actually go borrow probably $40 billion or $30 billion, whatever makes sense for them. And they won't use all cash. Why would they do that? Because they know the power of the secret tax, and they know that inflation helps fight leverage. You have to understand that. You just understand that one concept that I explained, you will be on your way to think like the rich, right? Like that's how we want to convert our brains. We don't want to think like the poor, save everything, drop our expenses down to zero, live on nothing, 40 grand a year, millionaire. It's going to take you 30, 40 years to get to that concept. Now, if you can figure out a way to fight inflation through, leveraging, because guess what? Also gets easier to pay. If you got $1 million in debt, let's call, and you took it out in 2019, well, how much, money is really, what's that value today? Well, that also went to 700,000. So your cash went to 700,000 if you had $1 million in 2019 to today, but your leverage also went from $1 million to 700,000. So it's easier to pay back. And guess what? That's inflation doing its work. And guess what? Because you leveraged your money, it actually buys down that interest rate, right? And so in general terms, think about it like this. If inflation is 3.4%, and if you could borrow at 3.4%, does it make sense to borrow debt? Of course, because the actual interest rate would be probably zero if you backed off inflation. And I believe over the next decade, this is where the true millionaires and billionaires will be made, the new ones. They will understand that this concept of leverage to fight the secret tax of inflation, just that one concept alone will help them fight to be millionaires in the future. The people who are doing this now will understand that in 2026 and 2027, that it was like the biggest play of their lifetime. It was definitely for me when I was doing real estate in 2016 and 17. I can understand now the power of inflation, how much easier it is to pay debt because now the debt's not worth as much either. And that isn't necessary using leverage. So I'm sorry, Dave Ramsey, but Dave Ramsey doesn't have any debt. He's worth $600 million today. But you know what? Dave could borrow at I think he's a billionaire, actually. I think I just saw something on that because he owns his real estate and then his coaching company. But he's worth $1 billion. And I think he's the only debt-free billionaire. But guess what? We're not all Dave. Dave sits in a 0.00001% area where not many people sit. And he teaches everyone how to stay out of debt. Unfortunately, he's basically he's teaching you how to stay broke. And his concepts are great if you need to figure out your own finances. But if you're going to get rich and take advantage of the secret tax that kills the middle class, the lower class, and makes the rich super rich, then you need to figure out how to use leverage. And I'll call it smart leverage because you don't want to over leverage yourself either, because that's how you lose everything like Dave did. So that's why Dave is against leverage. But if you use leverage smartly, if Dave was to take out $500 million and leverage it against his companies and his real estate, he would be fine. And actually, he would be taking advantage of more than we would just sitting on $1 billion valuation. So I hope you learned something through this. I think the understanding the secret tax and inflation and using leverage and how you can fight inflation, because guess what? It's going to fight you back, and it's going to fight you harder than you can fight against it. So you might as well utilize the tools that are out there for you. And if you're into this kind of thing and you don't know how to actually use leverage and you want to educate yourself, follow me and subscribe for more content like this. I do everything on real estate, investing, business. I try to explain all these different tools that you can help make yourself wealthy. And I just posted a video on how you can get wealthy in a decade following some of these rules. So go ahead and I'll link that below and how you can watch that video. So I see you guys in the next one.